Certainly not everyone succumbs to addiction, even with the same amount of exposure. Some people are more susceptible than others, and it's not just about willpower. It might surprise you to know that genetic factors play a significant role in substance disorder, in fact, accounting for 40 to 60% of the risk. I have a friend who's a prominent business school professor. He told me several years ago that he has addictive genes. I didn't quite understand what he meant at the time. But come to think of it, now that I know more about this, it makes sense. Drugs mimic natural brain peptides, such as endorphins, in the case of opioids, and anandamida, in the case of cannabis. But via dopamine, drugs bypass the behavior stage and stimulate the reward pathways directly. This hijacking is partially conferred by genes that make our receptors more sensitive to drugs, and some of us have genes that are more vulnerable to this. Some personality traits put people at higher risk of addiction: sensation seeking, impulsiveness, anxiety sensitivity, and hopelessness. With the exception of sensation seeking, all of these traits are linked to mental health disorders. The reverse is true too. Mental health disorders such as anxiety, depression, ADHD, or PTSD can lead to problematic substance use as the person tries to treat the symptoms of the mental condition by self-medication. Developmental factors in the person's history and upbringing, for example, early or adolescence use, family environment and relationships, be it parental or siblings, childhood trauma, and peer relations all play a role in the potential of substance disorder. So do social factors such as isolation and loneliness. Interestingly, socialization and drugs work on the same pathways within the brain. As social animals, humans derive significant well-being from social connection, and drugs are literally an attempt to get the neurobiological feeling of social connection. Positive, healthy socialization serves as a protective factor, whereas negative or inadequate socialization could be a risk factor. Risk factors for technology addictions are in many ways similar with those for chemical addictions. In fact, people with drug addiction problems are at higher risk for digital addiction too, as there are similar alterations in the brain. The links to mental health and social factors are applicable as well. In fact, maybe even more pronounced in the latter case, since the use of the internet and social media allows one to communicate without having to interact face-to-face. One thing worth noting specifically about the internet and mobile apps are their designed addictiveness. Many tech companies have leveraged neuroscience understanding about dopamine and the brain's reward system in their product design. They know that immediate and unpredictable rewards are even more addictive than fixed and long-term rewards. That's why we're so hooked online by social media, dating apps, some kind of random offers or discounts you may be getting from your online store. This is taught in some business school classes and shared among tech companies. The docudrama Social Dilemma is an expose by former tech executives at Google, Facebook, Twitter, etc., which goes in depth on how this is done behind the scenes. If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend that you do, especially if you have kids. Here's its trailer. As we know, many of these factors were heightened during the 3-year-long COVID-19 pandemic we've just lived through, with uncertainties, anxieties, and isolation exacerbating our risks for addiction, driving us to reach for the fridge, the phone, or the liqueur cabinet.